Hey there, SHIRO listeners. Saturn Dave here, reminding you that you must play Sega Saturn, and that it's contributions from listeners like you that help keep this and our other shows hosted and available on demand, in addition to our website, SegaSaturnShiro.com, where you can find all of the most up-to-date news and information from around the Sega Saturn scene. If you'd like to show your support and gain access to several perks, visit patreon.com/Shiro Media Group to become a Patreon supporter. If a monthly donation isn't possible, no worries. We still value your support in liking and sharing our content on social media and joining our Discord community to become a part of the Saturn conversation. Thank you for being a loyal listener and a part of this great community. And as always,
Did you know that we are closer in time today to the middle of the 21st century than we are to the launch date of the Sega Saturn?
What?
Yeah. But that said, 2023 was a pretty awesome year for the Saturn. And in this episode, we're going to take a look back at how and why.
Excellent. Excellent.
The Sega Saturn is
so great and fascinating. It is the greatest wonder of the universe. Ah.
Hello folks, and welcome to another episode of the Sega Saturn SHIRO podcast. And happy 2024. I can't believe how fast the last year has gone by, but here we are in 2024. And we're going to have a pretty interesting episode for you all today. And what we're going to do is just take a look back at all of the amazing Saturn, developments, events, and happenings of the last year, because there's been a lot, and I feel like every year there's more and more, and it's just such a joy to be part, of that vibrant Saturn community where, it seems like every time you turn your head, there's a new development, but we're going to focus on all the cool new things that we got to experience, through our Saturns in 2023. So your hosts today are myself, Saturn Dave, and Trainical Pat. We're going to have a really awesome discussion, and we're going to just start off doing what we always do, and we're just going to talk about what we have been up to since the last time we recorded. And Dave, do you want to maybe get us kicked off?
Yeah, Dave, let's see what you got going on.
Sure. Since the last time we recorded, well, it's been a while, but Pat and I went to this little shindig called PRGE.
Oh yes.
We met up with
Portland Gaming Retro Expo. Yes,
Portland Retro Gaming Expo. We met up with our buddy Nick Panda for the first time in the flesh. Nothing sexual, but
I mean everything sexual. To be honest,
everything sexual. I don't know. I just don't want to go into too much detail. It was a
shindig and a half. Shindig
but we shared a room. We shared
It's getting sexy now.
Did you share any more than just a room? Like, did you guys play Gex? Did you have some Gex?
We had some hot Gex.
There was some brotherly love
every single night.
Yeah. Amazing.
And no, we had a blast, and it was a lot of fun. Definitely a little more low key than last year doing the Saturn Lounge, but a different experience, but a fun one nonetheless. And met a lot of people. It was made a lot of connections. It was a lot of fun, and I just loved seeing Pat again and hanging out.
Yeah.
Likewise, Dave. It was great seeing you and Panda. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed seeing you guys hanging out, checking out the con. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that I'm not like under the weather next year, because that kind of put a tiny damper on it for me. But at the same time, it was still enjoyable, and I definitely can't wait to get back. And I'm hoping that you're there next year, Peter. Maybe if you can, book it out in advance.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm going to see if I can prioritize that to actually make it happen. Because the last show I went to, the last PRG I was at, was 2019. So it's been a while, right? Like, here we are in 2024. So I'm going to see if I can make it out this year. But yeah,
that'll be phenomenal.
So what's been on your gaming playlist? What have you been playing lately?
Let's see. So Tears of the Kingdom, I'm kind of wrapping that up. I'm pretty much done with that, but had a lot of fun with that game over the past few months. I can't dump a ton of time into a game these days with the parenting duties and stuff like that. So I kind of play it as like a slow drip over several months. And it was fun. I picked up No Man's Sky on the Switch. I'm late to the party on that, but it seems kind of neat. It was like $15, so got an offer up. And
I mean,
it was like,
it's a lot cheaper, and it's probably gonna be a lot better than it was released in what? Man,
oh yeah,
was it 16 that came out? I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was released in 16. So, and I just completely ignored it back then because I heard it had work to be done and stuff. But it has a bunch of patches and upgrades and stuff like that, and so. It seems pretty cool for $15. Like I couldn't pass that up.
You can't beat that for $15.
I bought a Genesis Mini from Sega Steve at PRGE, actually as a gift for Jesse. I wanted him to have kind of like some kind of a physical console, a physical Sega console he could put on his little desk in his room and associate games with something physical. Because for him, games are all like Scratch on his PC, that platform, or just downloaded games on a phone and stuff like that. He has no concept of the association of physical. Yeah, I guess the Switch, all of my games are physical or cartridges and stuff like that. So I guess he does have that. But yeah, with the older games, it's just like I wanted him to have his own little Sega console. He loves the thing, so we play that together, Streets of Rage and stuff.
Was it the first console or the second one that you got, the second Mini?
It's the Mini one.
The
it's the first
one.
Mini.
Gotcha.
I do still want to get a Mini 2. I know that has like the Sega CD games. It has a few of them. But recently I picked up a Mega SD from Pat, and that's
nice.
Rocking like the entire library of Sega CD, 32X.
I went full Mr. My
Genesis.
friend. I have no use for a Mega SD anymore.
So Pat's rocking the Mister.
I mean, I even got rid of my Sega CD I had because I just didn't use it.
Wow.
I mean, but then again, Pat's been pumping up the Mister for years now. You were like one of the original people back when you really had to like cobble it together yourself, and there weren't any like beautiful cases for it and everything like that. You were one of the OGs with the Mister.
Yeah, I still got to get a new video board for that because the other one's like a blue tint on there, so I need to figure out why. I'm gonna get a blue tint on my Mister, so it kind of sucks.
Really? On you, just on the video feed?
It's just the
You got,
analog
like, a blue
board
tint?
only, not the
on the
HDMI.
analog.
It's just the analog board of it. I'll figure it out. It's probably something stupid, so I'll go.
I wonder if it's like interference related or something.
Maybe
like that.
I'm gonna buy another one and I'll see if that fixes it.
Interesting. Yeah, no. There's a few other things, but I'll kick it over to Pat and see what he's been up to.
Man, where do I start? Besides the vinyl collecting and stuff with the Steely Dan we talked about on the show a little while ago, a lot of just like, Warhammer stuff, playing that, getting that together. Gaming wise, I'm really excited for the Mister right now, going through that, playing that, trying to play more games. I've been playing PSO a lot on the Dreamcast. I know I'm kind of late. Like saying I'm late to the boat would be an understatement. It's like the boat already has been dismantled. The boat no longer exists. It's in the graveyard, and it's like I'm trying to get on it.
So is this like? But this isn't your first time playing PSO, right?
No, not the first one. But I had never really played on official servers because I wasn't able to play back there because my mom was like, "No, you can't connect the Dreamcast to the internet."
Okay, so fun fact: Peter has never played PSO, and I keep telling him he is a Sonic Team fan. Like he loves Sonic Team games. He loves Knights, right?
Not
and
Fantasy
I keep telling
Star,
him,
apparently.
You need to play PSO. Can you? So do something for me right now. Pitch it. Sell him on playing PSO in 2023. Well, it'll be 2024 when this is released. So you're playing on servers, right, with other people?
Yeah, this is the first one.
So how do you do that, and how can Peter do that? Like he just needs like a Dream Pie, right? He needs one of those Dream Pies.
Well, no, I mean he could do that, but I like to keep it simple. I just got the broadband adapter, and just connect it into my Ethernet, and it works.
And it works. And you're playing with. You just got the second revision disc, right?
Yeah.
At PRGE, you bought what was it, version 1.2?
No, it's Fantasy Star Online version 2.
Oh, version 2. That's right.
I had version 1, but I realized, oh wait, it needs to be 2, and I thought I had 2 for the longest time, but apparently I just had 1. Okay. So I went and bought that, so now I finally have 1 and 2. So I think that puts my Dreamcast games, about 85, I think.
And are you just using the official product key? Are you just using like that official key that came with it?
Well, I didn't at first. I had to use a fan thing, like a fan made thing, but now I can actually activate it. But I'm not sure if you could do it on an account that you already have been playing on.
Okay.
So I don't know how feasible that would be, but I could try.
And what server are you playing with?
Just regular the Servient one, I think it was called.
Silverant. Okay.
Silverant?
Cool.
Or whatever, I don't know.
Peter, I highly recommend that you do. I highly recommend.
Honestly, the things that Dreamcast one I heard is not the definitive version. I think the definitive one is Blueburst on the GameCube.
True, but if you want to if you want to keep it contextual and you want to kind of experience it like you would have back in 2000 2001 that would have been the way to go with the Dreamcast version. But yeah, I mean, you're having fun with it, Pat?
I'm having a lot of fun with it. I usually just play it online and stream it. So I play with people that are online, like I play with Trekkies, Night of Dragon, Shadow Mask. And it's all online. Like I only stream when I play online with people, so it's a lot of fun. I think it's a good little fun thing to do with the Dreamcast and motivate me to play a game. So
honestly, I don't mean to throw you under the bus, Peter, but I'm gonna keep nagging you about it until you do. More than anything, because I want you to write an article about it. Peter, it's funny, you did Resident Evil in like 2022 or something, playing Resident Evil on the Saturn for the first time, and here are my thoughts. And you also did that with Myst.
Yeah.
And I found those articles so incredible because it's like, here's a like fish out of water kind of, it's like you have this unique perspective of never having played it. And so you're not like going to fall back on any kind of previous nostalgia or anything. You're just like, this is my snapshot opinion of what it's like to play this game. So I'm really interested in knowing what you think about it, considering it's a Sonic Team game.
Is this going to be a two-word article, bad game?
Oh, come on. I mean, the music alone shoots it up to like 75%. Like that alone, the music alone just carries the game. But then on top of that, it's phenomenal.
Okay,
so, but
that might boost it to just decent game in the article, and that's it.
Decent game. Next. Okay, so
Pause.
Next,
I'll say.
What have you been?
Okay, so with respect to Phantasy Star Online, I'll say this. It's just like with the Nintendo 64, where I didn't really play too many N64 games because I detested the controller. But a few months ago, I got myself a wireless Retro Fighters N64 controller, and that has really made it so much easier and fun to get into the N64 library. So a few months ago, Retro Fighters announced a very similar design Dreamcast wireless controller, and I was like, yep. So I signed up for that day one. It's as of this recording, it hasn't released yet, but when it does and it comes in, I fully expect that I'm going to just launch right back into the Dreamcast library, because I've got a pretty sizable Dreamcast collection too. I'd say maybe a third of the games. I've got both the Phantasy Star Online games. I just haven't really dove into them, but I'm thinking if I've got a way more comfortable wireless controller, Bob's your uncle. I just might dive right in. So that might be sort of my gateway drug.
And you have the keyboard? You got the keyboard?
No Dreamcast keyboard. So would you say that that's required? Like, is it necessary, do you think, for the experience?
It's not required, but
not required.
Nice.
Not required, but it is nice. And, you could have, like, your little Patrick, typing away on the keyboard while you're controlling the game.
I mean, I could fly in and type in for you if you really want to.
There you go. That's what my brother and I used to do. I took the controls in, and he just typed a bunch of smack talk on the keyboard.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, the things that with the advent of Discord and all the other like voice chat mediums,
right?
It's kind of not as needed anymore, because that's why I don't really rush out to get it. Because
this is true.
I'm just on Discord. It's like, hey, talk to me in Discord. I don't want to type in a bunch of crap.
Like I can't understate or I can't overstate how big of an impression that made back then, right? Though, because we do have Discord, we're so desensitized to it. But I mean, back then it was like a huge deal to be like chatting and gaming at the same time. I didn't want to derail Pat's updates, though.
But he did, anyways.
I totally derailed Pat's updates. But aside from PSO, what have you been up to? A lot, though. Besides PRGE and PSO.
Pretty much just that. I'm making videos, though. I hopefully I got a a project I might work on. I'm still trying to wait for it. I might get a product I can review and talk about that. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do more videos. That's my goal in 2024 is to work on more video content.
Mm-hmm.
Something I want to do. I'm probably going to like look back as like, wow, I did like one video, or I did no videos in 2024. But I didn't really do a video, and I really a traditional like me filming stuff with a camera video in 2023 or 22. The only time I really did that was 2021 with the bulk slash video. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the videos just like live content.
You just got to find things to point the camera at and just start filming.
I got ideas. It's just that I don't know how much I want to invest into doing the video. You know.
I totally get it.
It's a lot of
I'm
work.
The same. Like I like the difference between what's up here in my head, what I want to do, and what I actually do is quite. Yeah, there's quite a crevasse.
Yeah, but when I do a video I really want to do, I enjoy it. Like with the Soccer Wars one, where I was under all that pressure to do that. That was a lot of fun. I'm not being sarcastic either. That actually was a lot of fun to have that, know, that deadline and the being underneath the hot lights of needing to get the video out, or like we're getting bulk slash and getting that out in time for the release date of it. There's a lot of funness to that, and I really don't know if I've really felt like I'm not saying that there's nothing cool out in the community that came out that required me to rush it, but I don't know. There's nothing that really has been like I have to rush to do a video recently, at least to me. So I'm hoping that I'll find more like just do videos for fun. Like, oh hey, I'd like to make a video on the printer, the Pry Fun.
Yes, yeah.
And I really want to do a twofold where I do one on my channel, one on the SHIRO channel where I talk about the SHIRO, and the other one is like I make a Pokemon printer, like for Pokemon Snap on the Pry Fun.
Nice. That's a fun game, Pokemon Snap.
Sounds like fun.
It
is.
It was like this N64 game that I really got into, and it took me by surprise. I thought it would just be stupid, but I enjoyed it. And I'm not much of a Pokemon guy at all, but I did enjoy Pokemon Snap. It was fun.
Did you ever take your cart to the like Blockbuster? And
I did.
On the kiosks.
Yep.
And I never did, and I kind of wish I had. It would have been a fun experience to have, but no.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Unfortunately, all those pictures are so old that they sort of crumbled and fell off my binder.
They just like deteriorated. Yeah.
So exactly. I don't really have any of them left, like to stick on my binder anymore. The ones I have, I'll see if I have maybe some laying around, but I always took them up and stick them places. So
yeah,
I unfortunately don't have any more of those, but I'd like to. Like I said, I'd like to do the video where I just like, hey, if you want to replicate that and you don't want to spend like a couple thousand on the kiosk, here's an option you could do, and then it'll be kind of fun.
That would be fun.
No pun intended. And just like, print it out and stick it on your fridge or whatever.
What about you, Peter? What have you been up to? So for context, people listening to this, we're recording this, early November-ish?
Yep.
No, this is 2024. We're recording it in the new year, dude.
Yes, we're totally recording
this. This is in the new year. Welcome to the new age, to the new
But when I'm asking
age.
Peter what he's been doing, I'm asking you like what you've been doing this fall, right? Like what have you been doing over the past couple months?
So gaming-wise, I've sort of finished my time with Panzer Dragoon Zwei. I put a good 30 hours into it to really sort of...
Wow.
And I've often said I prefer the first game, but I'm not sure that I've ever given the second game the due, that I maybe could have. And so I decided to do that. Right. And I now appreciate it so much more. I'm not sure that I would say I like it better or worse than the first one. I think they're too different to really compare that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
I found it to be a lot more refined than the first one. It's more of a scoring type game, whereas the first one was more of like an abstract cinematic story type game. So they're quite different from that perspective. But yeah, I mean, 30 hours and about 20 hours of gameplay, and I got to the point where I could credit clear the game at 100%. So that was good. And then I just kind of kept playing to make sure that I could see everything and do all the different, branching paths and see all that there was to see. I think I'm there now. And it was utterly enjoyable. I really, really liked it. So for an early 96 game, like it blows me away, it was phenomenal. So that's that. And what I'm playing through...
Did you play it in like widescreen mode?
Yeah, I tried all the modes. So more
yeah.
often than not, I stuck in 4:3, but I also did a lot in the widescreen. And then I also did where you set it to widescreen, but play in 4:3, so you kind of get the slightly distorted. Anyways, it's fun. And there's just so many, like, what I found about that game is there's so much to the scoring system that's not documented anywhere. So there's cool little things that I found about, if you do this and then you do that, you get this scoring bonus
Kinda
or
like
whatever.
Knights.
Kind of like Knights, where there's just not, the documentation is just not there on the internet for it. So that was a lot of fun.
So you're saying is that we had an article coming up on Panzer Dragoon?
Zwei?
So yes, I'm about halfway through. I'm kind of putting it together, definitely.
I thought Peter already wrote an article on Zwei.
So I wrote an article on the first game, a really long one, many years ago now. But I figured, to be honest with you, I want to ultimately write a really solid, good article on Saga. But there's been so much done about Saga that it would have to be something fresh,
can you do it different?
Something different, right? And I figured
different
that
perspective.
You should make a hater article.
That's right.
Like, no, like I it sounds like I'm joking, but like do one from I don't know, like when I was taking like writing in school, it was always like do something like interesting, like make a article on like something like something you like and like crucify it, or like like make a bad review of something, which I thought was a fun exercise because it made me think critically on the thing. Like I remember in school it was a bad review of a Beatles album, so I did a review with the Beatles. And it was all about how much of how derivative it was, how much it was more or less the same as the first album, how it has a lot of issues with the stereo separation,
interesting,
and stuff like that. What's like it's like I like that. It's like why is like maybe make it controversial where it's like Panzer Dragoon Saga, the game that's not really a Panzer game, or something that makes you like, oh, what the hell? Why did you say that?
I mean, I can think of a ton. I can think of several negative things to say about it, and yet it's so great. Like that, I don't know. Peter and I were talking about it with the Sega guys, and I just feel like it's so wholly unique. It's interesting, Peter. Though you said the way that you feel about Panzer versus Zwei, right?
Yep.
It's almost like Sonic the Hedgehog versus Sonic 2. Like Sonic 2 was wildly popular, and then of course 3, right?
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog, it's a much simpler, kind of just more, but I mean, like when I think of Sonic, I just think of that initial presentation, Green Hill Zone, know, and that's the classic track and the classic, it's just like, this is Sonic at its very fundamental root. Panzer Dragoon, the original game, it's just very clean and just simple. There's not a whole lot there, but what's
the
there?
Way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go.
You got the orchestral track. You've got still mind-blowing visuals for the time, and it was definitely like it was the game to show anybody if you wanted to like impress them day one with the Saturn, And then Zwei just takes it up several notches and just adds so much complexity to the game that was already great, much in the way that Sonic 2 does, but I think I still like Sonic 1, and I understand how you feel about like the original Panzer Dragoon because of that score and just because of how
the impact it had, right?
The impact that it had, it can't be understated. Yeah. Exactly.
It's funny, and I'm gonna squirrel out just a little bit here, but I remember recently saying on the Sega Guys cast that I recently went back to Final Fantasy VII on the original PlayStation, and I expected to like it and I wanted to like it, and a good 15 hours in or so, I couldn't get into it, and I hated it. Like, I was like, how did people love this? There's so many flaws with this, and this is broken and that's broken, and I've abandoned it. I've given up on it. I'm not playing through to the end of it, and it was sort of like, okay, but this was such an important game. It really made the case for Sony, and that's when they really kind of took off versus the Saturn. Even in Japan, like, what in the world were people seeing to it? And it came to me just the other day that that's what Sonic 1 was, in a way. Like, if you think about it, it's a simple game. It's got some flaws, like some levels aren't designed the best, and you're not going quite as fast as you maybe could be or should be. But then you've got Green Hill Zone, and you've got that Impact, and all of a sudden Sega was in the game against Mario and this and that. So to me, that's what Final Fantasy VII was. It was a game that I think had more historical impact than it necessarily was like a flawless, like a perfect game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It was really the big RPG that really was put in front of audiences as this is a movie experience, a cinematic game experience. The way that, stuff like Last of Us and
100%.
Games like that have become the cinematic game thing, and when we look back, it's like, this is a cinematic game thing. It kind of,
the music was fantastic. The way that they would pull you,
some of the best music of all time.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
The way that they would pull, and the same can be said for Sonic the Hedgehog.
Agree, disagree. I'm just joking.
Oh, definitely
the contrarian.
Absolutely phenomenal.
I like
but I mean,
soundtrack a lot.
the way that they would pull you into each battle with that kind of
the transition,
and then you would have the rotating screen with it. Of course it's been done to hell and back, with so many games. But I mean, at the time, that's the thing, is context is everything. And at the time, it really was just like seeing it for the first time, phenomenal.
Yep.
The materia system is like love it or hate it, but at the time it was still like a lot to grasp for gamers, and we were just like, wow, there's so much depth.
Yes.
And of course it's just they've just refined so much. RPGs in general have just become so refined that it is kind of crude to go back to some of that stuff, but it's just that impact that it had can't be understated. It sent ripples through the game industry, ripples through RPGs, and in the same way that Resident Evil did for survival horror. Sure, Resident Evil has been done better, but that original game was leaps and bounds from Alone in the Dark. It was just like, boom, this is what a survival horror game should be. This is the building blocks, or like the foundation that we're going to build on,
100%.
And my thing is, like, thinking about it, it's like Peter's talking about how he didn't like the original Final Fantasy VII. It makes you wonder if that was how the Sega executives thought about all these RPGs that were locked in Japan on the Saturn. If it's like,
right,
these games are kind of boring, kind of drag. It's not like, it wasn't that exciting as they thought it would be. And it's like, why would we have this when we could put this on there instead of put efforts to localize this game, which, arguably a lot of people didn't really care as much for,
Well, and not to mention that RPGs would be so expensive to localize because there's so much text and everything, right? Like versus, say, a fighting game or a shmup or whatever, that takes no time at all to localize. So yeah, definitely. But
you know what? So I was a teenager in the mid-90s when the PlayStation was out, and when Sega was deciding not to bring a lot of RPGs to the West. Sony was really kind of like, it could be a kid's gaming station, but it also was very much focused on adults, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember my dad, what brought him back into video games was the Sony PlayStation and was the Japanese RPGs. And I didn't get it. Like, I didn't really get it. Like, Final Fantasy VII was flashy and it impressed me as a kid, but I would only watch him play RPGs. I would not play Chrono Cross. I would not play, Final Fantasy VII. I wouldn't really play the games. I would sit there and watch him play the games because he was crazy wild about JRPGs, and I was still interested in stuff like Knights and stuff, right? So it's like, I think that a lot of the RPGs and JRPGs really have a greater appeal for, folks who are in their 20s and up, like younger kids and teenagers weren't as into them as older, teens and adults,
This is true.
That's just what I think, and so Sega was always saying they wanted to be a little bit edgy and focus on older kids and stuff, but they really weren't focusing on like adults who, adults have experienced a lot in terms of video games and stuff like that. And now they're older and they want something more with a narrative. They want something more mature, something with, they don't mind the text because they read,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, so
it's just crazy.
It's interesting to think about that way. It's like it's a lot of people didn't view these consoles as like, adult entertainment machines until like,
right,
years later, where it's like, oh yeah, everyone's playing the new, and it's the new entertainment medium. But back then, it's like, I think Sega still saw it was like a kid's thing, like a
right. Like I found Lunar appealing Lunar appealing because there were cartoons. You could watch like all the FMV cutscenes, which were kind of few and far in between in terms of like how much gameplay there was, right? But I'd watch my dad play Lunar, Silver Star Story complete on the PlayStation. I was like, okay, this is cool. And he kind of would explain to me why these games why he liked them so much. And he's like, there's just more depth. You get more game for your money, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And of course, I ended up loving JRPGs, but it didn't come automatically. Like I didn't really get it.
I mean, it happens.
Games like Vi.
I think there's a lot of, like instances like with music, like you don't just jump into like a lot of like the experimental jazz or like the more weirder bands. Like you have to ease yourself into it. Where it's like you listen to bands that were inspired by that. Listen to bands that are kind of like that, or like a mixture, and then you go straight to that genre.
Right. Like I liked Link to the Past, but that was about as close to, and that's not really a JRPG, but it's more just like a
action
adventure RPG.
Yes,
action,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, so I came around, but I guess I represented some of that segment of the U.S. that wasn't interested in RPGs per se. But yeah, what they weren't looking at is like all of the older teens and adults who were totally ready for RPGs. They were like, that's what's going to hook them, actually.
Precisely.
Yeah, it's
we
crazy.
really got really deep into that topic in just the intro.
Yeah,
right.
No kidding. I'm going to round off just by saying the other sort of nerdy, exciting thing that I've finally accomplished is I have finally replaced each and every single one of my long box cases that had cracked or missing hinges. So this took a total of 40 new long boxes, and I got them all from different sources. So I did end up, the last ones I picked up were actually the ones that LRG had made years and years ago, and then they never ended up selling them. Remember how they only used them for their own limited editions? Well, I don't know what they must have, I guess, dumped the rest of their stock onto
Amazon?
It was that subsidiary of Amazon, and it could be just because I'm in a different region that I wasn't getting it on Amazon proper, but it was like a similar website. I think it wasn't wish.com. I don't want to say wish.com because it wasn't that, but it was something similar. Anyways, I took a chance, I ordered them, and I got them, and it was the LRG stuff. So I've now had the first and second run from the fellow in Alaska, and then I've also had now the LRG ones, and believe it or not, my favorite ones were the Alaska ones. I wasn't too,
Me too.
Right? Yeah,
Me
okay,
too.
so that's not just
I
me.
returned my limited run ones, and I told Audi, I was like, no offense, tell manufacturing, and he probably did, but it's probably a moot point at this point because I don't think they're going to go back. And did you get the thing where the tray, the gray, so when they deliver them to you, it's all separated, right? You have the trays and then you have the cases, right?
Correct.
It's not like they're put together, right?
Right.
And so you assemble them. You put the artwork in, you put the gray tray in, and it locks in on one side, but then it pops out on the other side. So you're like,
my
okay.
God.
Then you pop it in on the other side, and then it pops out on the other side.
100%.
They are not machined properly, so that the gray insert tray actually fits into the thing properly. It's like off by 0.5 millimeter or whatever. So it's so frustrating. I was like, I can't.
It's always that tray though, right? Like, because like even the first run of the Alaska one was like the trays just like slid out. They just like flopped out.
Oh, I thought it was more like they
wouldn't close or
door
something.
Would not close, probably. So you just hold it there, and the door and the manual would fall out. But yeah, with the second run of the VGC online or whatever, the Zygauge or whatever, I don't know what they're. I don't know. I think they're sourced from China, honestly, and then they're sold by Chris Alaska or whatever.
Yes.
So essentially, I don't know if they're still making them, but those have been the ones that I've used for every, proto release that I've done, and those have been the ones that I've used for if I've replaced any. I'm OCD though, Peter, so I've tried to keep all of my cases OEM for the most part, and that's hard.
Of course, it is. Yeah. That's the whole point. Oh, you know what? There is one other thing that I guess I should quickly mention. I got my very first prototypes. So that's something that I've not collected before, but I got 3 prototypes. They're not too exciting. They're sports games. So one is NBA Action 98. Another one, and 2 of the 3 of them have previously been dumped, but it's just cool to have like an Acclaim disc or like a Saturn pre-production disc. One of them has not yet been dumped, but it's simply a slightly earlier version of an NBA game, and there has been a later prototype dumped. So, I'll probably dump it.
Kay is still going to want that.
Yeah, and put it up there. Not horribly different or anything, but it was just really cool to get a couple protos. So that's a new sort of dimension.
Hand, though, you could snap it in half if you want.
What?
I was just saying, like, I like the idea you having the power. Like, it's like, I have the power, I could dump it, or I could snap the disc in half.
My God.
Oh, God.
Yes. I don't even want to contemplate that.
I will change the course of history.
That's right, and just snap.
It's true, though, that it's just nice to have. Like, it may not be super significant, but, like, even that silver that Kay sent me of Sega Touring Car, because he knows that I like Sega Touring Car despite its flaws, having that, it's nothing really big. There's probably several silvers out there, but just to have something special like that is kind of nice,
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Like, so, I mean, I wasn't hunting for, a prototype to Knights or Grandy or whatever. It was just I wanted to have something that was physically, worked on by devs and burnt to these special discs before it was release ready. So,
and you sent me something amazing that augmented my already like one of my favorite games, Enemy Zero, on the Saturn. You sent me these I don't know, they were like trade show flyers.
Yes.
Cards, really. They were like on card stock.
Yeah.
At like E3 or something. And so those go with my copy of Enemy Zero now, and it's just like, nice. Check this out, it completely augments it to the next level, for me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that's the whole point. Like, it's not like I'm going to spend hours and hours playing these protos, that they're just going to essentially sit there, but they're like a physical connection for when these games were made, for me anyways. So
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
totally agree.
I think that we're just about ready to wrap up the longest intro that three guys have ever done on this podcast.
Well, thank you for watching the podcast.
So let's dive into the main topic of our cast, and really what we're going to be doing is just very casually talking about all of the cool different developments that we got to sort of experience and live through 2023. And I'm not going to, go through any particular order. We're not doing this in order of importance or impact or even chronologically. I'm just going to start firing out some different topics, and we're just going to talk through them and what these developments meant to us, and so that we have a bit of a record of what went down in 2023. And so again in
2023.
So when future generations listen to this podcast about the Sega Saturn, they'll know what went down in 2023. So I'm gonna start off with this was a big one. Several months, I'd say middle of the year, there was a leaked document, a 1997 financial document from Sega, and that was really like the community jumped all over that. It was dissected backwards and forwards. I know we talked about it a lot. Panda did an amazing deep dive video, and it really gave I think a look at sort of what was going on at Sega of America that we haven't really had before. This isn't something that people talked about, that their situation was A, quite dire, and B, that they knew exactly how poorly they were performing against Sony and whatever. But of course the public sort of face that we got from that was not, it was all bravado and we're fine, everything's good, no issues here. And yet they knew behind closed doors. So to me, that was a very significant...
you don't want the shareholders to get upset. You don't want the stock price to plummet. So you keep a positive face to it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and
internally, you're just like
that you're bleeding.
Internally, you're shitting bricks because you're like, what are we going to do? How do we right this course?
Yeah.
No, that was probably the biggest news to come out of 2023. And it should be said that along with that document, days later, a week later, we also got the Irimajiri lecture, which kind of was tacked on to the document in terms of like storytelling, because it also it confirmed what the document said, but it also clarified a few things about like the Saturn's architecture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember even back when the Saturn was current, and this started even as early as I would say 96. So just before this fiscal review document would have been created, some of the sort of more industry focused or maybe well connected publications of the time, there was a lot of, Sega should just pull out of the hardware market, stop selling the Saturn, and just go third party. That's where they're going to make their money, etc. And that was such anathema, to me at the time. Like, the Saturn was still quite fresh, it still had life. This was even before Nintendo launched the N64, and it was like, what are these guys even talking? Like, where's this coming from? This made no sense to me as a teenager, But then you look at it through the lens of, first of all, experience, I guess, and being involved in business in some ways. But then you look at it, you look at what was in that document, and it reveals just how badly they were doing, and that they knew that they were doing this badly. And it's, it sort of makes sense. I mean, the fact that they stuck it out as long as they did is surprising, considering what they already knew. So far in advance, and the fact that they even went ahead and produced the Dreamcast, all things considered, because you look back to Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation, and at least for those first few years, a lot of folks treated them as relatively equal. Like, it wasn't like Sony was this big giant that dwarfed Sega, etc. But really, they were. It was definitely a David Goliath situation. Where Sega was small potatoes. They were they absolutely were in way over their head, I think, by the time Sony came in and did what they did. And this just kind of sheds a new light on it.
I think when you go to Vegas and you play the tables or whatever, you're always going to lose, because they say the house always wins, right? Because they can just keep betting, right? They have money for days, right? Whoever has the most money is going to win, right? Well, Nintendo and Sony were both companies with huge cash reserves, right? Sega was never a really wealthy company. They were a talented company. They were richly talented. They had a lot of smart people. They took a lot of risks. They were scrappy. They made great stuff, but they were never a company that was just flush with cash.
Right.
Okawa did give a lot of his money, to kind of like infuse the company and keep it going kind of on life support. But that still was just a drop in the bucket compared to what Nintendo had, right?
Yep.
So it's like Nintendo, and then even by, Sony could come in and just push a ton of weight around because they had money for days and Sega just didn't have that. So it's like every decision Sega made such a big difference because they didn't have just cash to burn, And so that promise that Tom made to U.S. retailers, when you're trying to take on a juggernaut like Nintendo and you're trying to gain parity in the marketplace with them, you have to make certain deals, because no large retailers are just going to let you come in and give you the same preferential treatment. Nintendo had been passing them, whatever deals under the table for years, to
not to mention they already had those standing contracts, and not to mention
contracts and relations.
Never really released anything that bombed heavily besides the Virtual Boy. So it's like up to that point at least.
How exactly? So how do you come in and push your weight around? What weight do you have to push around? What ace in your sleeve do you have? Well, Tom Kalinske was like, okay, let's just make promises. I have so much confidence in us to win that I will sign a deal that's very that doesn't favor us at all. It basically says we will give you plenty of stock, and if you don't sell it, we'll buy it back.
Yeah,
that's cocky right there. And I don't want to throw Tom under the bus and say that he was just being cocky. I think he really believed that the Genesis had what it took to win. He was confident in it. He had done those kind of tactics before with Mattel and stuff like that, and was used to taking risks and was like, okay, let's play the long game. Let's sign these I don't know, kind of like crossroads deals
Yeah,
with the devil.
and the things that he kept keeping alive, like I mean, you should heard him. He had like they were still putting out
Right.
Genesis stuff even during '97. Like they had
Yes.
demos and stuff. Even like
Right.
they're showing off like the Nomad and stuff like that. It's like, what are you doing? It's like
Yep.
And I mean,
But yeah, to be fair, the president, it's like back then, it's like hindsight. We could say like we knew it's a bad idea, but in hindsight, it's like, well, they never did anything like that. Maybe it could be like a generation thing where they have these old consoles that still have life in them, and you still put stuff out on it and still have that support for it. But when you don't have the money, it's like you can't make gambling like that.
and it wasn't just Sega of America's fault. It was Sega of Japan's fault too. You can't place blame on either side. But when people talk about the animosity between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, it was definitely real because they didn't even want Tom to do that in the first place. They didn't want Tom to pack in Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
When Tom went to Japan, with Toyota Shinobu Toyota and Al Nilsson, they went to Japan and pitched it. Everybody hated it. Everybody was like, "This is stupid. This is terrible." They were kind of almost like upset about it, and even Nakayama was just like, I think this is a terrible idea. And everybody in that boardroom thought it was a terrible idea, but I promised you that I would give you the reins and let you do whatever you want, so go ahead and do it. That was at the beginning of the Genesis.
Yeah.
So like as it's going on and they're kind of looking at the bottom line and seeing, at first they're seeing reported profits, right? They're seeing reported profits and they're like, okay, so he must be doing something right. But then when they finally caught up in late 95 or early 96, when they finally corrected their books in Japan and started accounting for the US, like for all of the buybacks and losses, then they see the big picture is we're not making money at all. In fact, we're losing money,
Yes.
like millions. And so then it's like that animosity towards Sega of America just gets cranked up to 11,
Yep.
Yeah.
Like there's so much resentment. There's so much resentment because they're like, because Japanese culture is so conservative, especially with money and coming out of a huge economic, crash,
Yeah, and it's being a
that-
recession,
that-
like because the '90s that they just came out of that recession '92, so it's like
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, like they considered it foolish, the way that the company was being run in America. And so, yeah, there was, I don't know that it was so much a pride thing as it was just like feeling like the way that the Americans are running that side of the company is just kind of careless.
Well, I think a lot of American companies are always like, they sell more than they lose more than they earn in the beginning to make that be able to get that
Right.
market share. Like, I mean,
Yes.
Microsoft did it, Sony did
Yep.
it.
Yep.
It's like,
It's a sound idea.
Yeah.
It works, and you do make money on the software. You do, but nobody knew. I didn't know. Nobody knew about the whole buyback thing. That was a deal that never should have been signed. But I realize now that that's maybe the one thing that Tom had to do in order to be able to get into Walmart and Toys R Us and stuff like that.
That's it.
Like
it's hard because, like, I mean, they already like burnt bridges, like in the beginning of Saturn's launch with the whole surprise launch, and KB Toys and stuff like that didn't want to hold it because it's like, well, we didn't get any, or like we had a surprise thing. It's like, well, you screwed us over.
Yep.
So it's like,
And then they were, of course, putting out the 32X, like a piece of hardware that just did not move units. It's so much so that they had to, I don't know what Pat was saying, they offered it in test markets for like half the price or like a quarter of the
yeah. Not to
the
mention they're
price,
salvaging it them points for the chips in it
For
at that point.
parts, yeah, isn't that wild?
Right.
Like that's crazy.
I mean, that's how much it didn't sell, and that's because, my theory is that by that time globalization had taken in the news. U.S. consumers were hearing about the Saturn, whereas before we were kind of blind to what was going on in Japan.
Yeah, we had people like, oh yeah, we import, like they had the import sellers, like in the last
Right.
the podcast with Mel that we did, where it's like, yeah,
so if
everyone knew they could just import it.
If you have a Genesis and you are thinking, oh, I have an option to pay $150 for a 32-bit add-on, or I can just wait, half a year to a year, and I'm gonna get this new 32-bit powerhouse that's
or not
out in
even.
Japan.
They can just like go to an import seller,
or I can just import it. Exactly.
Yes. Yep.
So that's the thing. Global people, we weren't blind to what was going on in Japan, and so with the U.S. consumer being a bit more savvy in the fifth console leading into the fifth console generation, just nobody bought the 32X. It just didn't sell. So it was a doorstop basically.
Yep.
And combine that with the buyback, combine that with the signing your soul away to have to buy it all back. Now you're really hurting, because that's a ton of hardware that costs them so much money to fabricate and then have to like buy it back. And there's freight shipping and all that associated with all that stuff. So it's a lot of money just
wild.
burned. It's a nightmare.
I mean, what is it?
Yeah.
They said they had like 100,000 copies of, was it Sonic 2 in a warehouse?
They overproduced Sonic 2. It was a phenomenally popular game. Almost everybody with a Genesis bought one, but it's like they made way more than they should have, because they ended up with 250,000 extra copies of Sonic 2.
Yeah, I thought it was lower.
It was something crazy. It was like 250,000 or something. I could be speaking out of my ass, but I'm pretty sure it was. There are a lot of figures in that document.
Yeah, it makes sense why it's easy to find complete copies or like almost sealed copies of those nickels on the dime compared to other games.
They didn't go into a landfill or anything like that. They just ended up getting sold, through
wholesale
these places that would buy pallets of games. Yeah, like Jared Nickel. What is it?
Project COE. Yes.
Project COE talked about how there were pallets of Panzer Dragoon Saga that were picked up late after the console wasn't selling, and you get these like game exchange companies who sell new old stock for years and years after the games. It's all starting to dry up now in terms of Saturn, but I'm sure if you've been on Amazon or anything, you've seen these like resellers that have like Heir of Zendor 6.
I still remember
6 sealed in a box, and then those end up on eBay for ridiculous prices.
Yeah, I remember seeing like on just like back in the day, just like sealed boxes of games, Sega games, any game. Like I still remember like even Nintendo, they had a F-Zero sealed at like game stores even back in like 2008.
Right. Yeah. If it didn't end up in a landfill, then it's probably like rotting away in some factory, some warehouse,
somewhere, right? Yeah.
Till it ends up seeing the light of day. But and every once in a while we read something like that on Kotaku or something, unearthed a bunch of copies of Street Fighter 2 Alpha or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff like that. But what those documents really did for us as a community, I think, is just help kind of paint a more accurate picture of Sega's downfall, really, and what led to it, and that it wasn't the Saturn. Actually, it wasn't like, it can't all be pinned on the Saturn and the Dreamcast, right? It was basically starting. It's like the Titanic hitting that iceberg, right? It started all the way back with the Genesis,
Yep.
And the water was coming in, and then there were several things along the way that they could have done to keep the ship afloat, but they didn't do those things either, So, because with the story of the Titanic, it's like they had those bulkheads, right, that would close off and keep the ship afloat. But I mean, there was shoddy craftsmanship. There were, other missed opportunities with that. And of course, the ship ends up going down. Well, the Saturn, Saturn, as we all know now, is a great console with a lot of great games. And if you just look at it objectively, like Jesse, for example, looks at it without any context of history or knowing that it was a failure, he just thinks, it's a great console with great games, right? And it is. Had it been released simultaneously in the West as well as Japan, and they made a really concerted effort putting all of their eggs into that basket and making sure that it had, at least 10 to 20 great launch games and several to come, it may have done a lot better. But instead, of course, as we know, Sega had so many different holes in the dam that they had to plug up. They had the Pico, and they had the 32X, and they had the Nomad, and they had the Game Gear, and
it's like gamble after gamble.
Yep.
I mean, if I could attribute a quote to them, I would have to say that it's like, now you swear and kick and beg that you're not a gambling man, but you find yourself in Vegas with a handle in your hand, really.
Oh my God!
And it's like it's like Klinsky's like he's like I'm not. This isn't a gamble. We're gonna keep doing. We'll do it again. We'll stop we're gonna go back, Jack, do it again, and like just try these gambles, and it just never really paid off, and it just turned out to be more gambling than actually business tactics. Like, oh, let's try this thing, or try supporting this still. It's like what about the Genesis? It's like, can we stop with this Genesis thing, dude?
But in contrast, what Sony had was money for days and one console.
Yeah.
One machine.
One console and all the developers.
Singular focus. Blinders on. It was just like this. We're putting all of our combined power into this one machine and making it the most phenomenal success ever.
And I think they they set the precedent with that, though, because now that's the whole thing. It's okay, we support this console, this one a little bit, and then, it's dead. Okay, now we move on to the next thing. Blinders on, focus on this solely. Make sure it's the best it can be.
I don't think there's ever been, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's ever been as huge of a seismic change in the games industry as there was at that shakeup when Sony entered.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like,
even Xbox, it's not even like, Xbox, while it did something similar, it wasn't on the level of Sony. Like, Sony is like the big juggernaut now.
It's like the earthquake that just shook everything up, and the dust settled, and this is the new industry now. This is what the new norm is. It's fully realized dev kits and easy to use tools where you can bring in novice coders who have a little bit of C knowledge, but they're mostly like designers, game designers, artistic folks who can, and you can build these huge teams that can create a game that's like a Hollywood movie, essentially. You know?
And if you think about, like, even Sony, even with its blunders with the PS3, it really has been on a mega great track, like 99% of the time. Besides that like small time frame between 2006 and 2009, where the games were just like a bit gimmicky and stuff. While like so with Xbox, it's like Xbox like countless stumbles and blunders, and like now it's even like now it's not on the pedestal that they had back when they had Gears of War and Halo 3 and all those other games.
But Sega really did used to mean something significant to this hobby, and it really was this arcade amusement company that was throwing their hat into the home console ring.
That was their roots.
And that was their heritage. That was their roots. That was their heritage. That's what they knew. Small teams working really hard to develop these games that were very kind of simple but very pure and just focused experiences. Sometimes at their own detriment in terms of like critical response, like not enough tracks, not enough going on in this game, because arcade heritage, it's like it's all about the pick up and play, right? And that's what a lot of Sega experiences are. Even a game like Jet Set Radio is very pick up and play. Yes, it's got more depth to it, and it's got like a storyline and everything, but I mean, some folks just want to skate around and grind and spray paint walls and stuff, and it has kind of an arcade feel to it, even though it's not an arcade game,
Yeah, and that's what I like about Sega, though, is that you don't have to. It's not a mega time investment, and that's why I love Sega arcade games, because it's like you could pick up something like Border Down, or you could pick up some of the shoot 'em ups, or some of these other like just fun games, Power Stone. Play a little bit. Oh, I lost, and then put it down and do something else. Like, it's not like a. It's what I like about the Sega games in general, is that I can actually, I have to sit down. Oh, I have to plan out time to play this RPG for 3 hours. It's like, okay, I don't have anything to do for a couple hours. Let me kill some time, load up the arcade machine, play some Puzzle Bobble, or play some some of these Sega games, shoot 'em ups or Power Stone or something. It's like, okay, I'm done and do my thing,
And at the same time, I mean, they gave us stuff like Sakura Wars, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they are diverse for sure. But that Sega at its core is really that like arcade company,
exactly.
And so.
Okay, so how's this for a 2023 event? Towards the end of the year, we got to see some footage of Metal Gear Solid running on the Saturn. Thoughts? I mean, so first of all, do we think this is a thing? Do you think it's going to potentially get... What I mean is, like, will it ever get finished and see the light of day? Would Metal Gear have actually made a huge difference had it come out, on both consoles, back in the day? let's sort of talk about it. Like, first of all, I'm assuming you both have played
Metal
through
Gear
it.
came out in 98, right?
98, yeah.
Metal Gear Solid came in. Yeah,
Good
so
game.
Saturn was dead. So no, I don't think it would have made a difference. But yeah, it's a great game, and it really depends on Frog Bowl. It really depends on these
Developers, what do they want to do? Like
these developers. Yeah, a lot of times they just it's like, no offense, but it's just really like,
Proof of concept.
like I'm just doing this to prove that Saturn can do it,
Could've
right?
done it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, and in all fairness, he's open about that, like saying that was my impetus for doing this. I just want to prove that Saturn could do it. A lot of times I don't think that there's an end goal of like porting the entire game to Saturn, unfortunately. And it's not like it's not like there's a whole ton of qualified individuals out there who can like help out.
Well, he's
Agreed.
slowly working on it,
It's
though. You
like-
see him like, he just did the VR mission update as of
VR
this recording.
mission, yep.
But he also is
Exactly.
working on something else that's pretty big recently on Dreamcast.
On Dreamcast, Sons of Liberty, right?
Yeah, so he's trying to port that.
That's crazy.
So it's very prolific developer. I'm very surprised that all this is happening so fast. But yeah, all of this is real. It's like that's what's crazy.
He's
about
definitely got the chops. He's definitely got like the coding chops,
Yeah.
and that's obvious. But yeah, whether or not there's a plan to kind of like, I mean, for example, XL2 gave us this amazing Unreal version of Unreal, right? But he has no plans to port the entire game to Saturn, right? He gave us like a couple levels, and that was great. But yeah, a lot of times it's like they get, I don't know. I think it's just a project like that takes so long, and they're just
huge,
constantly on to the next challenge. Like, okay, I conquered this mountain. Now on to the next challenge. I'm not really here to like do the entire game. It's more like proving to myself that I could do it, and then moving on to the next thing. So I try not to get my hopes up.
No, and you're absolutely right. I just look back to 98, and at least in Japan anyways, that's when Konami decided to take a lot of their bigger PlayStation games and port them over to Saturn. So Vandal Hearts came over, Suikoden came over, Castlevania Symphony of the Night came over, and I'm positive Metal Gear was initially on that list. And it could have been that even in Japan at that time, the Saturn was kind of fading, because you'll remember at the end of 98, Dreamcast launched out there. So it could have been something that was maybe on the drawing boards, but was very quickly abandoned. So it's an interesting sort of window into what could have been, to see footage of Metal Gear running on the Sega Saturn.
Well, Pat, what was the speculation about that? Like there was some speculation.
There's some speculation that there was code of Metal Gear Solid that was run through the Saturn probably towards the beginning of development, and maybe is dropped to focus on PlayStation. But honestly, my theory about the Metal Gear series not making it to any Sega console is just timing, because Metal Gear Solid 1 came out in 98. They want to put on PS1. Maybe they were thinking they were going to do the Saturn plan, but by that time it was probably towards the end of that console, and Dreamcast is coming, or if it not already came like months later. And they're thinking, and like even if it's like, maybe we could try Sons of Liberty. By the time Sons of Liberty dropped or was in the ending of development, they killed Dreamcast, because Sons of Liberty came out like the end of 2001.
For the record, Metal Gear Solid plays great on Dreamcast.
Yeah, you can play it with the
Bleemcast.
The Bleemcast.
Yeah.
So
You
technically
sure can.
speaking, you can play a Metal Gear Solid game on a Sega console.
On a Sega.
Yeah,
And it plays great. It plays great too. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's just all timing, and I think it would have been definitely playable. It definitely would have been portable, but it just they just decided not to do it. And I mean, I can't blame them. I mean, I think by that time the writing was on the wall for both consoles, so it's like by the time those two were in development, it was kind of hard to justify, hey, let's put resources into, put on Dreamcast, and it's like the focus went to PlayStation 2 only, which for better or worse, I guess subsistence too, I suppose. But
based on what we know about the Saturn and like what we talked about, Pat, with John Linneman, is that like whenever the PlayStation was the target platform for development, it was always going to be harder to kind of port things. You always had to kind of do things differently. you and figure out clever ways to use the Saturn's VDP2 and everything to your advantage. So it was never going to be like a straight port. It was going to be like work, you know? And the same goes for the PlayStation. You know, if the Saturn was like the target console, like Grandia, you know, then porting it over to PlayStation, you had to make certain sacrifices. But like with the PlayStation's development tools being so much more straightforward, and I think most likely quite refined by 98, or sorry, at least like 97 when they were working on it, like it would have been a lot of work and taken a lot of time to do that. I mean, as we know from Castlevania, right? Lots of corners cut, sacrifices made, and even then it was like difficult when you're not just programming the game for that
from the
console.
ground up, right?
Exactly.
From the ground up, yeah.
And imagine that effort for like Metal Gear Solid would be intense or almost improbable for
lots of effort and lots of time, you know, which they didn't have. They didn't have time. So yeah.
So here's another game that did come out in 2023. How about Tomb Raider Unfinished Business? So these are the levels from the expansion pack from the PC way back when, and they got a full and complete Saturn port. So this is something that I got to try out a few months back and totally love it. So, you know, it's obvious that it was, it's the original Tomb Raider Saturn engine and the new levels have been sort of ported in. But I mean, just such a good job was done with that. It's literally plug and play. I mean, if you've played through Saturn Tomb Raider, you can take these levels and plunk them in. They make sense. And you know, all things considered, they run really well. And so it's just super cool to play new Tomb Raider levels in 2023. So, I mean, I had a ton of fun with it. What were you guys' thoughts on Tomb Raider Unfinished Business?
I'm not really a big Tomb Raider guy, so I'll just make my thing quick so Dave could talk with you about it, because I've never been a big fan of it. I appreciate that what it was. Wasn't it just like, it was only like the port of the thing, so is it like, you meant like new levels on Saturn,
yes,
though, right?
Yes.
It's not really... Yeah, so I think it's really cool. I appreciate for fans of the series. I never was really there, and I'm really never a Tomb Raider guy, but I'm really appreciative that they did that and allowed fans to play, a more complete version of that game. That's just my thoughts on it. So
this was Retro Raider John, right?
Mm-hmm, I think
I'm
so,
trying to
yes.
remember who we have to thank. I was the lead developer, but there were other folks associated with this project. And yeah, so I mean, again, like, I'm kind of with Pat, honestly. Like, I have a copy of Tomb Raider, incredibly important game in terms of like context of when it was released and everything like that. And I do enjoy it, but I'm not like that uber. Honestly, Peter, you're the most qualified person to talk about this, because I'm not like a super like Tomb Raider on Saturn fan. I'll fire it up and I'll have fun with it, but I find that it's incredibly frustrating because of the controls. Because of course, like Tomb Raider's come a long way in terms of control and stuff like that. And I'm a much bigger fan of like the Dreamcast game than the Saturn one, or the PlayStation for that matter. Like, I have a lot of nostalgia and a lot of great memories watching my dad play Tomb Raider on the PlayStation and whatnot. But like, yeah, so tell us what you think about this, and what folks who are huge Tomb Raider fans have to check out here, or why they should care.
So, well, a couple things. So first of all, I agree with both of you that this release will be incredibly satisfying to fans of early Tomb Raider games. Like, if you're into the latest Tomb Raider stuff, then this will seem very archaic. It will seem like...
Right.
So first of all, it's not going to look all that good, and it's going to control in a very sort of strange manner. But for what was achieved in bringing over some, fairly large and open environments to the Saturn at a respectable frame rate, in a way that it can splice in quite well with the rest of the original release. Not that that's what's included on the disc. It's just the Tomb Raider Gold levels, but it's cool. So it's worth checking out, if for no other reason than it's more new Tomb Raider, and it is a lot of really large and open environments, which the Saturn tends to struggle with. So to see it running, and to be able to pick up a Saturn pad and have a go with Lara Croft is really cool. And I mean, I haven't got this working yet, but there are rumors that the Nude Raider code that was rumored for the original release has been programmed back in. So if any of you are playing and you discover the cheat code, let us know. We haven't got it running yet, but
don't stream it unless you want your YouTube account canceled.
But they've added in like the handstand, which was in the PlayStation version, right? So they did that. They've done a lot of little refinements. I can totally appreciate this from just a challenge aspect, like what it took to get all of this done, and definitely I think I would have been much more impressed back in 95, 96,
sure.
But yeah, so, but as it is, I think that this is really for like Uber Saturn, Tomb Raider fans, which there are several out there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
My thing is, I wonder if this would able even qualify for the game competition because of what it is. Like, I don't think that'd be possible for them to really
hacks, patches, and translate. Maybe under the patches.
Well, even then, I think
sure.
It's more like a built from ISO, so it's like a download. I don't think they have a patch for that, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, like there's definitely a ton of work in there, but to call it an original game, yeah, that is a good question. I don't know. That's kind of a paradox.
It makes me wonder about the Metal Gear Solid thing too. If Frogbowl does put that in the game competition, if that would even be qualifiable, because technically it's a copyrighted game, but also it's a homebrew game, so there's an oxymoron there, a contradiction. So it's like how you would deal with that is interesting.
Okay, so then here's a development that maybe you are way more familiar with, Pat, because I'm not. So I'll maybe let you talk about this one a little bit. But there's been a lot of Mr. Core updates to the Saturn in 2023. So what does that mean exactly? And, what did we get? And I apologize for putting you on the spot a little bit like this, but I don't know anything about this.
Basically, so for those who don't know, Mr. is a FPGA, was it I wouldn't say console.
Field programmable gate array,
it's like
right?
I'm trying to think, a platform would be the apt word for it. It's not a console. It's more of a platform for being able to play consoles. Basically, the way that it works is, I guess the simplest terms, it emulates the chips on the platform that originally intended, not the actual playing the games. So you're playing on actual hardware, technically.
You're playing a Sega Saturn, basically. That the entire chipset of the Sega Saturn motherboard is programmed into this FPGA, so it works the same way as a Sega Saturn motherboard. Flaws and everything, right?
Exactly. And basically, it's gotten to a point. It's been released probably, I think it was like last year, but now it's gotten to a point where it actually is added to the main Mr. download. So if you want to install it on the update apps and actually download it that way instead of having to download a pre-production build, you can do that now.
Like, do you find that it's quite viable now? Is it quite solid? Is it stable?
There's a lot of games that play on it. There's still some issues here and there. Like, I had some audio issues running Bulk Slash when I tried that out, the dub. But like, for the most part, it's been running pretty well. A lot of the games that I could not get running are running pretty competently.
Okay.
So I think it's a nice competent platform. When I say it's at the point where you could throw out your Saturns, probably not, but it's getting pretty close to there, if not almost at that level, where it's like you can use that instead of a Saturn.
How does it perform compared to a really competent Saturn emulator?
I wouldn't know. I honestly don't use Saturn emulators. I think Saturn emulators might still be a little bit edging it out a bit, but it's getting there.
That's going to change soon.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, because obviously you can output 4K to the Saturn on the Saturn emulators. You can't really do that to the Mr. You could bring it up to 1080p, but you can't really make it like, rendering 4K. But with this new Mars FPGA development that's coming out, it might be able to output 4K Saturn that way, but that's a whole other can of worms that there's no info on it. But as of this recording, it might be a couple months away or maybe a year away. I don't know. There's not been really updates. It's just showing a shell of it and some pre-production stuff. So I'd like to talk more about the Mars FPGA when that drops, but that's an unknown that's going to be dropping right now.
At the end of the day, though, like a cycle accurate emulator takes up a ton of PC resources, right? You have to have a very beefy PC to do cycle accurate emulation. Whereas with the Mister, it's just designed to operate exactly from a hardware level as a Sega Saturn. So the end game, when they're finished with it, when they're finished with all the cores, it will be much more accurate. It'll be as good as it gets, basically. If you need to do the 4K stuff and you need to like up-res the textures and stuff, that's not really what the Mister is trying to achieve. The Mister is trying to achieve 100% perfect accuracy to parity with the machine. So all that extra stuff you're going to be doing probably in emulation. But for folks who want an archival grade device experience of Saturn for years to come, FPGA and the Misters is the way to go. So that's exciting.
You can't promise performance out of the chips or the CD drive, but you can promise performance out of a FPGA implementation of it.
Right.
And we know, it's not just the games anymore that are going up in price. The consoles themselves,
the hardware
the hardware is getting up there, right? And it's true. Like I kind of like to say, for folks who are like deep, who are like willing to, take a risk buying a broken Saturn, like Sega Steve was selling broken CD burned out,
like
CD
$20.
laser burned out Saturns for like $20. And then if you get you get a Fenrir or you get a Satiator, then, for a couple $100, you've got a Saturn with the library,
I kind of regret not getting those, to be honest with you. Because
but it's true. Like
I say, I kind of regret not getting it so I can get different versions of it, so I could test things out and put ODEs in there. But
true.
Hindsight and all.
But with if you're looking for like a good working condition Saturn now, what you're looking at, like anywhere from $80 to $120, depending on
for
where
US
you're buying
maybe,
from.
Yeah.
If you get a deal,
I know Sega Steve was selling
like
Japanese
a US
white ones for like $60 a pop. So
we just saw an eBay listing this morning. Somebody posted in the Discord group. It was like a Japanese Saturn with the fight stick, with the gun, with a bunch of games and everything. It was like $160. I was like, dang, that was a great deal, to get it. It was like 30 games or something like that.
Yeah,
crazy.
and that's the thing with Yahoo Auctions
starter kit.
Is that if you want deals, if you want Saturn deals, go to Yahoo Auctions, do the buy, whatever proxy you want to do. That's how you get the best deals on these options. And you're going to pay a little bit more for shipping, but at the end of the day, $100 for shipping plus, whatever the retail version of $300 versus, paying maybe like $60-$70 for that. It's like worth it to me.
And this was just an eBay listing, but it was a Japanese seller. And I have to say, go with a Japanese Saturn, buy from a Japanese seller. 9 times out of 10, the console will be in so much better condition than you would get for anything you find in the U.S. just because culturally how they take care of their shit.
Yes. And if you're a Western fan, like if you're in the United States, you just plug in, like you can just plug into the mains. Like I know a lot of people talk about power conditioning and stuff, but if you really just want something that, you're not going to want to archive grade pristine, just plug it directly into the thing and it'll work.
And it'll be fine.
Yeah. Because they're 110?
They're 110
and
we're 120, so it's...
And there's a level of tolerance. There's a tolerance. As long as you use a really clean power strip, like Pat has like a Furman strip, or you had like a really nice power strip that you brought to PRGE.
Yeah.
But you use something like that kind of delivers clean power and has like a surge protector, you'll be good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't plug it directly into the wall.
Yeah,
because that can be kind of dirty. It can be kind of dirty, and anytime there's like a power spike in the neighborhood, that can kind of do long-term damage to the power supply. Like you won't see it immediately; it'll still work, but it does kind of hurt those caps.
Yeah, to be fair though, I wouldn't recommend anyone plug anything directly into the wall anymore, even if it's
directly into the wall.
Like I put everything I have into a power strip, then into the wall. I don't even mess with that.
It's just like some people, when they're testing it out, when they're first buying and testing it out, they'll do it without thinking about it. They'll plug it into the wall just to see if it works,
Yep.
And I don't recommend doing that. I always recommend cleaning your power, because power at the wall can be really dirty. And which is just to say that it's all over the place.
And to be fair though, if you want to do it for quick and dirty testing, that's fine.
It's not consistent.
Just as long as you don't have to put it through if you have to do it long term.
Exactly. Yeah, what else?
There have been some cheat codes uncovered for games that have gone completely undetected until last year, 2023. So I'm talking about, extra characters in NBA Jam. There's been some codes in Shining the Holy Ark that were discovered. That was a new thing. Even things like, the debug features in Knights, which admittedly, there had to be some diving into.
And Burning Rangers.
And Burning Rangers, yeah.
Bow Bales.
So these are things that have been completely undetected for decades, and yet here they are, they've cropped up. I have to admit, at least for me anyways, I was pretty excited about the Shining the Holy Ark stuff, and I'll get to Knights and Burning Rangers too, but and I tried it, and I realized that with most of the codes you needed the Japanese, because it was all about like how you input your name at the beginning of the adventure, because you can rename your main guy, and so if you rename him, that's where you would input the quote-unquote code, and the majority of them required a Japanese copy of the game because it required you to input certain Japanese characters, right? Although the save files do work, they're cross-region, so you can start out with a Japanese copy, create your file, input your cheat code, and then play the rest of the game in on your US copy. But yeah, like there was at least one that was fine to just try out on the US copy, and I tried it out just to see, because I could not believe that decades later we would find a new significant cheat code for Shining the Holy Ark. But it worked. Like, you ended up, I think you start out, this code I tried out gives you 20 of some special item to start with your inventory. And it totally worked. So, amazing. And then same with NBA Jam, 2 secret characters that...
It was Kitzrow, Tim Kitzrow,
and then some guy named Fox.
Fox.
Oh, and then, okay, that's what it was. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that we're finding these because, of course, folks are like diving into these games, like diving into the code. I imagine that this is probably the case with a lot of games, honestly, and of course, these ones are kind of like the high profile games that folks are really picking apart. It's probably the case with many, many games on the Saturn and the PlayStation. It's just.
I mean, they found one Final Fantasy, I think, like maybe less than 5 or 10 years ago. The last quest that they forgot to find, and like a 7. It's like one of the family things. It's interesting but it's still interesting that a lot of these stuff is either it's hidden behind guides that are Japanese only that people in the United States never found, or like. No one really cared, because it's like, why would we dig into a game for the Saturn that wins in a play? Like, so even like Cutting Room Floor was like, hey, we don't really want to make a new article for this. Like, they had like Malenko had to drag their feet to be able to, get an article made just for the Saturn version of Cutting Room Floor's NBA Jam article.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's because I think, just speaking for myself, I think that everyone has a different take on this stuff. Like, some people are really excited about it, and I think it just has to do with whether you're into the game or not. Like the Tomb Raider Unfinished Business could be just kind of like a footnote for someone, and then for like Peter, it's like a huge deal.
Right,
that's
what I mean? True.
And if you're like a huge Knights fan or a huge Burning Rangers fan, the stuff that Bo Bales is coming up with, and Andrew. I forget his name. I want to give credit where credit is due. Andres Scholl, I think. I don't know. There's a few folks that are like digging up stuff in Knights and Burning Rangers, and I just think that it's like, if you're a big fan of those games, then absolutely, that's going to be big on your radar, and you're going to, think that it's really significant. So obviously these folks are just kind of like, oh, this is too little of a thing to talk about. But no, actually, I mean, like, for the announcer of the game to have a character in the game, I think that's kind of important,
Actually, I'm looking at it. Looks like they cut it from NBA Jam for the article Cutting the Floor. I guess they deleted the article, which I think that's dumb of them to do. But
oh wow,
whatever.
It's
their website. It's their website. They can do what they want.
But NBA Jam, the book, like they were thrilled about it. The Twitter account that's attached to the book.
It makes you wonder though, like, how much of this stuff has just been lost to time. Like, I'm sure at some point these codes or cheats or whatever must have been documented somewhere, you would think, but maybe not. Like, maybe it was just 2 or 3 programmers out of the whole team that knew about it or implemented it for testing purposes or whatever, or even just to mess around with the game, and maybe there was just never any documentation about it. And so now through data mining and just really examining code and whatever, people are finding this stuff. So, I mean, to your point, Dave, it's quite possible that a lot of this stuff exists on, on the older games, but maybe it's just never been out there. It's just never been documented.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if this is a small sample, but I'm guessing that it does. That it's the case with several games. It really just comes down to finding people to dig through these games. But you have to care about the game to want to dig through it like that. Mm-hmm. But it's fun. It's funny how so much time goes by, and it's like if enough time goes by, is there anyone left to care about it?
Yes.
You're like, guys,
yes.
anybody,
yes.
come on, look at and it's just everybody's like,
it's like, yeah, sure,
like they're just like serious, yeah, okay, good, I mean, but yeah, so I mean, there are folks that are like really enthusiastic about this stuff, and then other people are like, why should we care? Time renders everything obsolete.
I've never a huge fan of cheat codes to begin with, like for stuff like infinite ammo or this and that, because I always thought it was kind of a weird thing. Like
right.
The only time I really used cheat codes was like stuff like challenge modes, where it's like, oh, start the game with Mew. It's like, okay, cool, I like that. It's kind of a fun challenge, like
it's just like cheat codes are kind of made trivial by things like action replay, and then
even like that. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Like,
is that like the action replay? Codes
you know what I mean? But yeah, when we were kids, it was like a cheat code that was programmed into the game was just it was a thing. You would look at the back of every magazine to try to like
figure
get all
the
those
cheat
codes
yeah.
and write them down in your notebooks and stuff like that. Yeah, and then you got like the Game Genie and the Action Replay and that kind of. And now like flash carts have built-in cheats built into them, and you've got people hacking things like the Genesis Mini and adding cheats and save states. And well, they already had save states, but I mean, it's become so trivialized that we just take it for granted.
So another headline that we had was Shining Force artist Tamaki Yoshitaka dies. And, I think back, and not too long ago we lost the artist from Panzer Dragoon series, and there's been some other, high-profile folks Bernie Stoller passed away not too long ago. So, we're entering that sort of period now. Like here we are in 2024, the Saturn turns 30 this year, and a lot of the folks that were involved in its creation, with the game development, hardware, whatever, marketing, they're passing away. And so it's sort of somber. It's a little bit it's just a dark reality, I guess, that where are we all going to be as Saturn fans in another 30 years? Like some of us are just not going to be around. And,
right.
It's such a thing. I mean, something is in the mainstream, it's at retail, whatever, whether it succeeds or not. I mean, it's going to be the same thing with, say, for example, the PlayStation, the original one. Like those people that were there to create it, or the initial sort of hardcore gamers, like, you just give it some time and they're all gonna pass away. And, that kind of got me thinking about, well, what does it mean for me as a collector or as a Saturn fan or whatever to have all this stuff? Like, I just got a bunch of proto discs, like I mentioned, and that's super cool and important and vital to me. But who's going to care
right.
about that in even today? Like, who is going to care that I've got a slightly, earlier version of an NBA game from 98? Like, is anyone going to care? And
only you, really.
Like, but it's we laugh, but it's true. Like, and you think of
right.
folks like us, or even, guys like Kay or Sega Steve or whatever, that have these massive collections of obscure, weird items that have these stories attached to them and whatever. And, that is all going to fade, and it's going to fade with us. And we're seeing, part of that group starting to fade away now as, some of the folks that worked on this stuff are passing on.
I mean, that's why you got folks like John Hancock, who wants to, take, because he's got such a massitive collection. It's like, what do you do with that? Like, you can't take it with you, so you might as well like.
So I beg to differ. I'm getting buried with my
donate
collection.
it. Or yeah, Pat is the exception.
Of
he's
course,
gonna get buried with his Dreamcast. Yeah, he's gonna. He already sleeps with the thing, so of course he's gonna get buried with it. But
yeah, but yeah, no. It's a good point though. It's like I don't know. I think there's always going to be somebody that cares about it. I think, one of the things I always hear that's curmudgeonly talked about is like the NES, the Elvis collectors, you know, they don't care about the stuff anymore. It's going for less money. Obviously, nobody cares about it anymore. But I mean, with that Elvis movie coming out, it showed sort of begging to differ that, you know, there's always going to be some sort of spark or inspiration to make these things relevant again. You know, I mean, well, not now. I mean, and like going back to that death thing, like Peter was saying. I like the idea that, you know, there's a legacy left. Like, well, I'm not going to be around in like probably 100 years for the... I mean, I'm planning to live 100 years, so 100 more years on top of what I have right now. But, like, the idea that, like, after I'm gone, I'll still have this podcast. Like, it'll still be there for people to listen to. I don't know who is going to be listening to it in 100 years, but maybe... I mean, I guarantee somebody's going to be wanting to listen to it. Like, there's going to be people listening to stuff.
It's basically all relative to the amount of impact that it made in the first place. You know,
exactly.
Like, it's fair.
To overcome the sands of time, I guess, or whatever, to overcome like that just obsolescence that you get from so many years, you got to be like, look at the Beatles, like the amount of impact that they made in order to overcome that and be relevant for decades, if not centuries. Is it's a lot, right? So I mean, you take something like the Saturn and you put it in perspective and you realize that it's incredibly niche. Like it made an impact, but it's like a drop in the bucket compared to like the kind of impact that the Beatles made, or that I don't know, Jesus. I don't know. You gotta like.
I mean, like, I guess there's always going to be something that inspires people, and having that spark, which I was like with the Beatles, like
right.
I think every like 20 years or so years, there's something, or 10 years, the Beatles release something that makes them go back to the spotlight again, like the Beatles rock band with everyone playing that, or like, you know, the mono stuff, or the new recordings of Beatles songs. Like there's always something every 10 years or so that jolts the Beatles back into relevancy, and I think as long as that happens, I think that will keep the stuff alive. Like I don't think honestly, I don't think you should record a podcast with me in like 100 years, like in like 40 years if something happens, and like, you know, try to pretend I'm there responding. That'd be kind of too weird for me.
The reason you're asking these questions, Peter, though, is and in this, it's funny, in this recent we just released, well, it'll be old now by the time people are listening, but we just released an old interview that we did with Sega Lord X, right? And he mentioned in there how when you start thinking about your own mortality, everything hits different, you know? Like you get over 40, you start going to the doctor, you start getting bad news. You know, you start hearing that you need to make certain changes because your body's just not the same as it was when you were 20, and you can just completely abuse it and ignore, you know, you really have to start actually taking care of yourself. And when you do get to that age, you start thinking about your own mortality. And when you start thinking about your own mortality, you start asking these questions like, what kind of legacy will I leave? What kind of legacy did the Saturn leave? Is it enough to outlast just, you know, the constant tides of time, you know, that are just kind of wear it down, just like rocks on a riverbed, you know, to the point where nobody really remembers it or cares, you know? Yeah, it's funny. These are definitely like existential questions, but I've asked the same question recently, and Pat's like, why you gotta be so old? why you gotta be such a curmudgeon? Cheer up.
You talked to somebody about that, like
yeah, I talked to Adam Krorik. He's like, okay, you're overthinking it, buddy. No, yeah, he literally told me, he's like, I'm too busy to think those kind of questions.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good point, though. Like, I think there's different perspectives on it. Maybe it might feel differently in 10 years or so. Like, you never know. Like,
yeah, he's still in his 30s, though, too, yeah. And I do agree, he is busy. You keep busy, you don't end up giving yourself enough time to think about those kind of things. But it is true. I think all of us eventually kind of ask those kind of questions and think those kind of things.
I mean, I definitely think about that, but I just think about, well, I guess everyone's going to die, so it doesn't really matter at the end. And it's like, I just got to do the best I can to leave a legacy, like, you know, leave something where it's like, hey, remember that Patrick dude that played video games? It's like, or like did this podcast? It's like, that's really all I want. I don't want to like.
But when it comes to collecting and hoarding, I'm going to bring this home here because Pat's gotten rid of a lot of his stuff. He in favor of Mister, you know, especially a lot of the stuff that just takes up space and he doesn't use, you know. Peter has had an enormous collection over the years, and I believe, Peter, you said you got rid of your N64
Yep, liquidated a ton of stuff.
Didn't play it. You play it on the Wii Virtual Console and stuff, right? But you're not, and that's good enough for you, right? So it's like Peter and I did an episode on this, talking about OCD, hoarding, collecting, that kind of stuff. And so when it really does come to like amassing like this huge collection that you couldn't even bury with yourself because you would need like several coffins.
That's what the life insurance is for.
That's what the life insurance. That's where you just gotta ask yourself those hard hitting questions and say, okay, what's really worth it to keep and what's really not, you know? And what could I give to somebody else to bring joy to their lives? Like maybe I could sell this Sakura Wars standee to Pat because he would, he would get more joy out of it. He could bury himself.
But yeah, like the thing to me though, it's like what I keep is more of stuff that I can use at conventions. Like I don't need if I were just having the CRTs to have them, I would just sell them. But like I bring the CRTs to the conventions to get them played. Like no normal person needs 6-7 PVMs. Like you don't need that. I'd get rid of that if I didn't. But a lot of stuff I keep or stuff I need. So it's like, the multiple Dreamcast, for conventions or multiple Saturns.
Well,
for
so they're
testing.
Working machines. Like
I said,
you're putting them to work.
Exactly. This is all for like you doing what I do. Like I need it. Like I mean, like I don't need like things that there might be a time like we might move on to something or talk about other consoles. So it's like if say for example for the next day we're like, oh, let's talk about PlayStation now. It's like, well, I have this PlayStation stuff. If I got rid of it, it's like, oh, I have just the Mister now. I can't really talk about the cool things or some of the games or use B-roll and stuff. I'd have to rebuy those, and I guess technically I could rebuy them and sell them again. But to me though, it's just like I like having them for the idea of having props, having things to tie up for the show, like my business. Like vinyl though, like that stuff I should probably sell because I don't listen to the majority of it anyways. But it's still nice to have,
Yeah. I mean, but there's no harm in talking about it, honestly, because you look at the demographic of who listens to us, who watches us. It's all, guys our age. It's mostly, dudes our age, and I mean, we do have a few, younger listeners and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's probably folks who are asking themselves the same questions.
Yes, exactly, because it's coming up,
So
as the days go on.
It's definitely.
Yeah. And I guess my whole thing is that I guess just find a use for it. Can you use it? Is it like, do you do entertainment or do you want to do the possibility of entertainment? It's like if you have it, use it to talk about, use it as props. Like do something like I know that a lot of people will rag on Steve Wright Jr. for that, but the thing is that he comes and goes his collections, but he does it for entertainment, and it's like he has a reason to do it. And I guess maybe maybe not selling it that fast and getting it is. If you really want to be a hardcore collector, but it's like, I think he's with it. He just uses it to improve his life in ways. So I kind of am more going from, why do you sell the collection that many times to, it's like, well, he did it for a purpose. Like there's a reason he did it, and I don't blame him for it.
Everybody enjoys this hobby differently. I would say retro gaming or gaming in general, there's a lot of ways. Some people are really just interested in the history at this point. They're interested in mini docs and stuff like that. Some people literally just the thrill of the hunt and just the act of collecting games is the hobby for them. And some folks are all about, just playing a bunch of old games, and enjoying them, kind of with either rose tinted glasses on or just kind of looking at them for what they are and kind of reviewing them. But literally there's no right or wrong way to do retro gaming. It's just whatever it means to you, whatever you enjoy about it.
I think setting them on fire and putting them to a bonfire is the wrong way, but
for most
do you know anybody who's done that?
I don't know. I've seen people burn retro collecting stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me if they did.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Like I said there's right and wrongs, but I mean there's not really a wrong way if you're serious about doing it. Like I mean if you really want to collect like all these weird sports games, that's fine. Do it. I don't care.
I sports games get a bad rap, I think, but
they can be fun.
I mean, not all of them are great. They can be fun. Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to mention the fact that as we entered the year of 2023, we had just a ton of awesome stuff dumped on us in the form of the Sega Extreme annual contest that they do, that Emerald kind of hosts. And I find this funny. It's like most of the year we're kind of cruising along. There's a few things that come, but because of this contest, everybody enters crunch mode in like the fall, and starts like just pumping out all of this excellent stuff. And it's funny because it comes at a time when it's the holidays and we've got like a ton of stuff going on, but that's when we're getting like the most Saturn stuff. So like actually recently, there's a ton of translations that are being worked on that are starting to like show up and be posted on Sega Extreme for the contest that's wrapping up this year, So Pat and I and Peter and Nick, we're all about to get really busy with all of this amazing stuff that's coming for 2024, But basically it's all because everybody kind of waits until like the last quarter of the year and then they're like, okay, now I got to get serious and like enter crunch mode, to get this stuff done by the deadline.
No, exactly. And it's like it makes you wonder, speaking of that, like I remember we used to joke, 2019 year of the Saturn, and it makes you wonder, like and that was like only a couple of games. It's like, was that really year of the Saturn? Like I'm thinking about that. And it's like, what would you guys say is the year of the Saturn? Like what would you say as of 2024?
Every new year.
Yeah, exactly.
Every new year.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, like I'm not sure that
Saturn.
we've actually peaked. Like I'm sure there will come a time where interest in it decreases again, but we're in that renaissance period, and I'm not sure that we've hit the peak yet. Like every year seems to be more than the year before, to me, anyways.
Yeah. I can't remember. Uncle from Another World, was that 2022
That's
or 2023? 22. Okay, but then we ended up getting all the episodes in English finally in 23. And I mean, there's a show that just gives a lot of love to Sega and the Saturn specifically, So you do with content creators, with the media, and I just am starting to see it more. And I think maybe that's because the nostalgia we're finally coming to the time where a lot of Japanese folks have nostalgia for the Saturn, because it was a very real thing in their culture. I mean, Pat and I we met this little Japanese couple at PRGE that came to our booth, and they wanted to check out the Pluto and play some Virtua Fighter 2 and stuff like that.
I
and
still can't believe she pulled out Twinkle Star Sprite. It's like
Twinkle Star Sprite. Yeah,
that.
It was her.
Any game you could think of, and it's my favorite game. She has good taste. Yeah, one of the best.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Just insane. I really regret not going over and asked her to play a match, because that's one of my favorite games of all time. Nice. I think I was just so busy filming, because that was when I had the camera. Like we were just like wrapping up the filming and that stuff. So it's really weird.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it just makes you wonder. I don't want to be full of myself, but I don't know. Like I always consider this. Do you think we might be a part of that renaissance in a way? Like I don't want to be.
100%.
I mean,
like yeah,
it would be impossible to say that we aren't. And this isn't to
that's what I'm worried about. I don't want to be full of myself,
up.
but it's like you think about it, it's like people don't go up to us and talk to us, or they don't do that unless we made some sort of impact, like they did at these conventions,
right.
Or like Bob at Retro RGB coming up to us, or people go.
Well,
to
I definitely think Yeah, I definitely think Nick has, with Pandemonium. Sega Lord X, of course, over the years has. We have just continued to push so much content out there onto the internet. And if you do a Google search for Saturn, you can't throw a rock without hitting something SHIRO related, in a Google search or a Google image search. You're going to see a ton of content from all those people. And so, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been the town crier for the last, 6 years now, saying Sega Saturn, you must play Sega Saturn, and I think it's at least made a dent, to some extent.
Yeah. And
now you have the Sega guys who are also huge Sega Saturn fans, and they're pumping out content as well. So, definitely, and we have to, because somebody's got to keep that Sega love alive, because it's not, Sega is not the same company that they used to be.
No,
right?
definitely.
Exactly. And I think that we try our best to do it and do the job we can. But like I said, I'd like to think we made some impact as well. I just don't, I think it's kind of weird to think about that. And I don't like to. It's kind of weird bouncing. It's like I don't really want to, pat myself on the back, but it's like.
You don't want to pat yourself.
I don't want to patch myself. Oh, my God.
Oh man, but no, I mean, it's undeniable. I'm hoping that we don't. I'm hoping we don't, claim any kind of responsibility for pricing being what it is. I think that that's really just down to supply and demand.
Yeah.
Although we may have a part in driving demand, because of course we're opening people's eyes to all.
Yeah,
of
that's a good
great
thing though.
stuff.
Like
you can't do anything about it. You either shut up and say nothing, and just or you tell people this is out there. It's
to
great.
be fair though, we're not
out.
judging people's collection. We're even telling people, don't buy these overpriced games. Buy an ODE, burn a disc. Like,
right.
We're not trying to be like, oh, we're doing it so we can raise our own prices and sell our stuff out and make a profit. Because I guarantee you,
I mean, we all sail the seas, right?
Yeah.
we always say, if you can buy it, if you can support Sega, if you could support Success or whatever.
Yeah, buy the
company,
remakes, buy the
Taito,
remasters.
Give them your money, do support these companies when you can. But I mean, when it's a game like Hisatsu,
yes,
download the thing, and play it,
Yeah.
Or,
the things that out of all of us, I don't think any of us sold any Saturn stuff in the years since we started it.
No, I've only acquired.
No, I skew very heavily, more like 100% towards acquiring.
Exactly.
Stuff.
So it's like this is
if anything, we've made it harder for ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I was the one that I bought Magic Knight Rare for $900. Like, I mean,
oh my god, and now it's a lot more than
that.
Yeah,
it's like,
it
I mean,
climbing.
I shot myself in the foot. I could have bought it when I first started and then sold it for that, but it's like, I just won the game.
Yeah. Okay, so there's still so much that we are just not even going to have the time to get through. Things like the tribute games that have come out on modern consoles, things like the new, Retrobit controllers with the built-in analog pads, even things like earlier in 23, our friend San Segolo released his Red Moon Lost Days, his homebrew game, as an actual pressed release, So there's just been so much.
First one.
Yeah, that was so. There's just been so much, but I'm just wondering. So now we're in 2024. What is it that you guys most look forward to, that you want to see? Whether it's a translation or something in the community, or just what is your fondest Saturn wish? I guess that you'd love to see in 2024. And I'll give you guys a second to think about it. I mean, maybe I'll see if I can, if I'll kick us off. I would love to see some relatively easy way to have a fully fleshed out, completed, somewhat modernized dashboard for the Saturn, where, once I boot the machine up, I can access my memory manager and go into my floppy drive, or I can, have some kind of feature where I can send save files over the netlink to friends or whatever. So that would be my fondest wish. And over and above that, I'd love to see the translations continue. I mean, we're up to, I can't remember if it's 30 or 40 games now that have been translated over the years, and there are more coming. So that is fantastic, and I would love to see that continue on. And then just any sort of ephemera or historical stuff like we had with the big Sega document, the fiscal 1997 dump that we had last year. If anything like that, if we had stuff like that kept continuing to come out, that would just tickle me pink. So those are the things that I look forward to from the community. What about yourself, Dave?
Right. Well, I definitely know that, I agree with you about the BIOS thing. I know you've wanted to offer a bounty on somebody to do that, to be able to incorporate a better memory manager and everything like that, and just create a BIOS chip that we would replace. I think that's a great idea. For me, being put on the spot, not really, I think I'm going to go ahead and say that, and I don't know if this is going to happen this year. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but I'm really hoping that Seven Shades is able to finish CubeCat and wrap, because what I want more than just that specifically, and putting that pressure on Seven Shades, I would love there to be a fully realized, fully completed 3D homebrew game on the Saturn, one that is not just a tech demo, one that is not just a couple of levels, but a fully realized game that sets a precedent, you know what I mean? That stands as a milestone to the community and says, okay, this is where we're at now. We've kind of graduated from those early awkward stages of, doing a bunch of demos or doing a bunch of small little game jam games, but like this is, stands as like the first of hopefully many to come, kind of like the Dreamcast enjoys, of fully realized homebrew games that can actually be put out there, and potentially even sold commercially, not necessarily to profit anybody specifically, but just to establish that precedent of Saturn having a homebrew library, where people can actually start like collecting new games for the Saturn again. I think that would be amazing. I do really appreciate what San Segolo did, with Red Moon Lost Days, and even that is kind of a shorter, on the short side, but it's definitely the most fully realized experience, gaming experience that he's done, that his studio's done, and I'm certain that he's going to continue to move the chains and up the ante on what he's putting out. But so I really do appreciate that being like that, standing as the first commercial release. But now I would love to see a 3D game, maybe Cold Case, like that shocked me, seeing what he was able to do with Cold Case.
Yes.
You can't really do that with the patches. The patches is really just, it's a passion project and it's a badge of honor, but nobody's going to be selling it or anything like that. It's a done deal. They're just patching it and making it available for the community. So I'm definitely looking forward to many, many more translation patches. But just to have, a fully realized game like that, 3D homebrew game, I think would be amazing. That's what I'm looking for.
Nice. Where are you at, Pat?
I really want them to finish a Princess Crown so people can stop asking us when Princess Crown is coming out.
Yes.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah,
but
please, somebody put us out of our misery.
Yeah, but all joking aside, one of the things I really want is, I know there's all these translations, fan translations, and people did wonderful jobs in doing that. But one thing I want is reliable software that you could feed, the games, the video into a like OBS or something, and it will auto-translate it on the side. So, like, there's software that does it right now, but everything I've worked with, that's not, like, even just PC stuff that can access the memory is not reliable and is really, like, really doesn't really work as well as I want it to be. Because, like, the idea is, like, I love these fan translations, but expecting somebody to translate 04 or type R doozy, or, like, some of these really obscure ones. Like, because, I mean, I don't want it to, like, take the fan translators' jobs away, but, like, just having a vague idea so I could do a stream of it or talk about the game or, have fun with it.
Oh, it wouldn't take their jobs away, because what you're talking about is a transliteration, which is basically just no added context or cultural, localization. You're just talking about basically translating it exactly as a machine would, and so that you have enough of an idea that you can, fumble your way through the game.
Yeah, I'm not asking for like a full, like, be able to tell what the story is. Just like hey, this button is start, this button is go, this button is shoot.
Right.
Or like a hint, like, oh, hey, don't kill civilians or whatever. Because I have trouble with that. I have issues killing civilians in games.
I think you really want to go on your date with Whale Man, don't you, Pat?
I do.
Yeah, that's the truth comes out.
That's the thing is, I guess learning Japanese obviously is probably the smartest idea, but I guess the idea is I want to be able to play these games and, like, do more streams and talk about, like, games that nobody really knows about or cares about and make people care about it, So it's something I would love to have, like, in 2024, if they had something like that where you just feed, like, a really reliable way to feed it into it and just, like, get transliteration automatically. Like, that's all I want. Like, that's, once I get that, it'll make my job 1,000% easier for doing what I do. But that's really all I want.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would love to see, I'm going to add this in, I'd love to see that some kind of commercially released receiver for the 3D control.
Oh my
pad,
goodness, yes.
Right?
1,000%
yes. Because we have the BT dongle, the Humble Bazooka, and that works great. But just to have that Bluetooth receiver come out in some kind of commercial form where I could buy one, that would be amazing.
100%. Well, whatever 2024 does end up bringing, I think it's fair to say that 2023 has been just a mountain of developments, translations, cons, and just all kinds of just wonderful, wonderful things. And I truly do believe that, this sort of Renaissance period that we're in with the Saturn hasn't crested yet, and that the really, the best is still yet to come. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you all had a really solid start to 2024. All the best. And just a quick reminder, you must play your Sega Saturn. Thanks so much, guys.
Play it or die.
What?
That's right. That's it. You got it. All right,
I'll burn your collection if you don't play the Sega Saturn.
What?
Ouch. And on that note, we're good. Well, that's another episode in the books, folks. We hope you've enjoyed it, and this is my absolute favorite part of the show, and that's when I get to call out our patrons or supporters who support us month after month. Folks, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We are absolutely nothing without you. You make what we do possible. You make what we do fun. And you are my fire, the one. Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Yeah, so how about we just call out the folks that support us instead of me singing Backstreet Boys. So huge thanks to A Murder of Crows, Emerald Nova, Ioannis Fetz, Michael Sabah, Nate Lawrence, Sega Steve, Shadow Mask, Blue Moon 95, Causal Seth, Ceralian, Chris Piper, Chris 1997 XX, Daniel Frederickson, David Zaney, Derek Pascarella, Fat Drunk Friend Otaku, Gem Clash or Rank, Ian Keg, Jay Hersey, Justin, Mamdou Madouar, Normal Guy, Nutrageous, Robert Ramsey, Rowan Dinch, Stoneman, Tanuki Trev, The Sega Guys, What Is This, and Young Money Sway. Thanks a lot, you guys. You are amazing.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Epic.
Crazy. Shocking.
Well, 2023 has been absolutely a blast. I cannot believe that the Saturn community is still picking up steam. And here we are in 2024. We've got the Sega Extreme game competition right around the corner. Times are good. This is the time to be a Saturn fan. And, what awaits us? Who knows? But I, for one, I am so glad that you were all along with us for the ride. So long, folks.
Welcome to my home. I'll take you on a guided tour.
Show, get back to your seat.
Got it. Destination, the central core of the spaceship. Full blast.
Roger.
The real battle starts right now.
Welcome to the fantasy zone. Get ready.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Rain Thunder.
Very long, easy ride, maybe.
Sega Manx TT Superbike. We won't let you have it your way, Fury.
What a slapperhead!
Anita!
Tell me why.
What?
This podcast is a SHIRO Media Group production.
知らせたんしよう